New round of subpoenas issued in the investigation into the January 6th insurrection. This time, the subpoenas included members of the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and other far-right groups. Newsy political director Andrew Rafferty in Washington with the details. Andrew, good morning, my friend. Who specifically was targeted with this last round of subpoenas and why?
Yeah, well, good morning, Dave. And it was three of those extremist groups, as you mentioned, as well as their individual leaders. Some of them might be actually familiar to viewers at home. That's how kind of well-known they become during Trump's administration. Number one, as you mentioned, is the Proud Boys. And they're a group that this committee says played a role in organizing the events of January 6th. Actually, 34 of their members have been indicted by the Department of Justice, many of whom are behind bars as we speak because judges have ruled them to be too dangerous to be let go while they while they await trial. Another one, the Oath Keepers. This is a group that the committee says brought paramilitary gear to the suburbs of Washington, D.C. in anticipation of January 6th. The third is a little bit more of an obscure group, the First Amendment Praetorian, and the committee says that they provided security for a number of events around January 6th. And a couple of the events, you might remember, there were some rallies here in Washington in the days before January 6th, as well as their leader who tweeted on the day of the insurrection, "Today is the day that the battle begins." The committee is asking for these groups and their leaders to turn over documents by December 7th and appear in person a couple days later.
Why are these groups so significant?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you listen to the subpoenas that the committee has put forward, the reasons are clear that they played a key role not only in getting people to Washington, D.C., but then getting them physically to the Capitol on that day and promoting violence. If you look at one group who had brought a number of weapons to Northern Virginia, a state where you can have those without necessarily the same legal restrictions that exist in Washington, D.C., and you look at just some of their social media in the days leading up to that, I think this committee has real questions. They're going after a lot of the folks who played a role on the ground on January 6th, in addition to those big names that we've talked about, Mark Meadows, Steve Bannon, those people who were involved in the Trump orbit. That is part of the focus. The other part of the focus, which we saw yesterday, is those individuals who are physically here in Washington, D.C. on the day of the insurrection.
Now, you mentioned Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff, who was right there with the president, Steve Bannon's former chief strategist, Kayleigh McEnany, Alex Jones, Roger Stone. Where do we stand on that? Has there been any connection to the president in terms of the planning of January 6th?
Yeah, well, not that we know of just yet. And remember, most of the work that this committee is doing is behind closed doors. But you'll hear to the investigators, the members of Congress who are on this committee. They've talked to 200 individuals, issued more than several dozen subpoenas at this point. And you're right to point out people like Mark Meadows, Steve Bannon, most prolifically are known for having not cooperated. They say they've got most people are cooperating in some capacity, but we're rightly focused on some of the big names that are not. But this is a group, a panel that is very aware of the calendar as we go into the Thanksgiving holiday and then careen towards the end of the year. Congress has a lot on their plate, and there are huge political ramifications. So that's why I think in recent days we've seen so many of these subpoenas go out, so much more action from this committee, because they are very aware that they are reaching some deadlines for their work to be wrapped up in a timely fashion.
Yeah, this goes anywhere near the midterms, it probably dies out there. Newsy political director Andrew Rafferty reporting live for us in D.C. Thanks.